Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross and I was always told I had a voice for radio, so today we are starting another tournament. We are looking at the Sutton Coldfield League Challenge. This was an expanded League Challenge, which means we're going from all the way from black and white through to the recently released set of Breakthrough. Little tournament today, 16 players, 5 rounds, best of 1, but we got some good players and some good games, so settle in, make yourself comfortable, and enjoy this round from Sutton Coldfield League Challenge. Single game, 30 minutes, black and white to Breakthrough. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our little league challenge here. We are, of course, in the expanded format, like I said in the intro. And we've got 2 familiar players. On the left, playing an acro bike, we have Luke Kirkham. He is playing Blastoise. We saw him back in round 1, taking down, oh, by the way, Seismitoad Bats. If you haven't seen the previous 4 rounds from this video, the links are in the description. I very much encourage you to check them out. On the right, we have Tamao. He is going to be playing Vespiquen Flareon. We saw him in the previous round taking down a Night March. So Luke here, he's playing a Battle Compressor, and Blastoise, one of these decks that goes from the discard. Now, the fact that he's gotten rid of a Water, a Blastoise, and an Execute, that shows me that he's going to have an Archie's Ace in the Hole in his hand. Generally, you would get rid of a Blastoise and an Archie straight away, trying to VS Seeker the Archies. The fact that he hasn't done so means he's got an Archie's in his hand. Because if he didn't have an Archie's in his hand, he would want to put one in the discard pile to increase the chances of finding it. So we see an Ultra Ball coming down there. This is going to be a Caldeo or a, well, it could be a Caldeo, but it could also be a Kyurem. Because, well, we'll get onto this matchup in a little bit. So it is a Kyurem. Luke's going to be going for the non-EXs here for reasons which will become evident as the game progresses. Luke's going for that turn 1 Blastoise. Now, speaking to him at the beginning of the tournament, he said he'd tried 4 times the previous night, hadn't got a turn 1 Blastoise. I believe he has every round up to now. He did when I played him, which I think was in round 3 in this tournament. And I believe he did in the game we saw in round 1. And, oh, there was the Archie's Ace in the Hole. He did have it in his hand. He plays it. Remember, that is a supporter card that allows you to draw until you've got 5 cards in your hand. But more importantly, put a water Pokemon onto your bench as if it were a basic. Even if, like in the case of Blastoise, it is a stage 2. So Luke's now got that Blastoise on the bench. His delusionability means he can attach as many water energies as he likes whenever he feels like it. So a Trainer's Mail gets him an Ultra Ball, and we saw that he discarded the Execute from that early Battle Compressor, and that's going to be really good for him because it just helps with the maths. It means that when he's playing, and I know he plays 2, so presumably next Battle Compressor he's going to be going for that. It means that he's going to be able to use Ultra Balls and Superior Energy Retrievals and Computer Search, only discarding 1 card from his hand, and the Execute, which he gets from the discard pile. So, very, very useful, I think is fair to say. And when he gets the second one in the discard pile, it's actually going to allow him to play an Ultra Ball or a Superior Energy Retrieval or even a Computer Search, and he can just propagate both the Executes using the ability to put it in his hand from the discard pile and just discard both of them. So a Battle Compressor comes down from Tamao, and as we saw in the previous game, and I am going to be speaking as if you've seen the previous game, so I heartily encourage you to do so, especially Tamao's game last round. It was, quite frankly, very nice indeed. He's going to be wanting to get rid of Pokemon, so he gets rid of an Eevee. Obviously, Flareon is weak to water, and most of those water Pokemon, though not all of them, some are weak to ice, but most of them are weak to grass, so Tamao is going to want Vespiquen more than Flareon here. Although remember what I said in the previous game, those DCs are still at a premium, so it may well be that he needs to use an Eevee with Blacksmith, or Flareon with Blacksmith later on in the game to get rolling. But for the time being, it's not really an issue, because he only needs, maybe 1 late game. So, Tamao here, he's got his Eevee in the active, and this is one of the real downsides of Tamao's particular build. We're going to talk more as we go through the game, but this is a matchup which very much comes down to the build with which both players have gone, or for which both players have gone. Tamao is not playing any Forest of Giant Plants. That means there will be no turn 1 attack this turn. It ain't happening, ladies and gentlemen. Here, there goes a Jirachi. He's using, I want to say Stellar Guidance. I could be wrong. Something like that. I think it's called Stellar Guidance, which allows him to search for a supporter, and he's going to get a Sycamore and presumably play it to get a new hand of 7 cards. Now, because Tamao's not playing any Forest of Giant Plants, he has no turn 1 attack. Flareon, or at least his good attack, needs a double colourless, so even if Tamao were to use Energy Evolution on the other Eevee, which allows him to evolve straight into Flareon when you attach a Fire Energy, he's not going to be able to use Vengeance because he doesn't have 2 energy attached, only the 1. So the only way he can evolve is by using Energy Evolution on the Eevee. Now we see he's got a Fire Energy on the Eevee, but it was Tamao plays 2 of each Eevee. 2 are the one that have more HP and 2 are the one that have the Energy Evolution ability. So he can't actually do any kind of attack here. I think that Eevee might have an attack actually. Maybe does 10 damage for 1. But it ain't going to do much, ladies and gentlemen. Ain't going to do much. So here comes another Battle Compressor from Tamao, and he's presumably going to dump some more Pokemon. Maybe he's going to dump some, supporters he can grab back with VS Seeker, but mostly this is Pokemon dumping city, quite frankly. Now, that Articuno, we should talk about that Articuno. It's got the Delta Plus Ancient trait, which means that Luke will actually get 2 prizes if he knocks out a Pokemon using it. So there goes another Eevee with a Battle Compressor. That's 3 now. Interesting to see whether Tamao will save the 4th to maybe get a 1-1 Flareon line to get a KO late in the game using that Blacksmith supporter card. Articuno has 1 real attack for 2, 1 puts it to sleep and nobody cares. For 3 water, 20 damage plus 40 more for each coin you hit heads from 3 flips. I.e., if he hits 1 out of 3 flips, he'll KO that, I believe, 60 HP Eevee, and he'll take 2 prizes. So both of these players are going to be prioritising non-EX decks, and Luke is going to try and jump ahead in the prize race using that Delta Plus Ancient trait from the Articuno, so that even though he's not KOing EXs, he is still taking 2 prizes. So, let's talk about the builds here. I chat to Luke and Tamao a lot. They're both very good friends of mine. And every time I even mention the word expanded to Luke, he goes to great lengths to explain to me why Blastoise is the best deck in expanded. So Tamao there, he dumps 2 Pokemon and he dumps a Blacksmith. As explained, he can get that back with, what will be his 4th Eevee plus Flareon later. Now, I said, well, hang on a second, what about Vespiquen? You're prioritising using Keldeo. He's an EX that's weak to grass. Vespiquen kills it easily for 2 prizes. And Luke said, yes, that's true. If my build were in time, and there is the 10 for 1 attack. 10 damage for 1 energy. And that is true if you're playing the traditional list. But you can see here, Luke's got an Articuno in the active. He's got a Keldeo on the bench. I believe he plays another Keldeo. And what Luke's going to be doing here, so we see the Jirachi going down and he's using the Execute, so he only has to discard 1 card from hand. What Luke's going to do here is try and take all his prizes with non-EX Pokemon. You can see he got rid of that Jirachi. Now he is going to have to grab a Shaman, which is a shame in that Luke now has an EX on the bench. Yes, I was a little bit proud of that pun. No, I do not feel ashamed right now. At least not in any way that really counts. Both players are going to want to avoid putting down EXs here for the obvious reason that when you've got these non-EX decks, it really does come down to who can get ahead and keep ahead in the prize trade. And if you let your opponent KO an EX Pokemon, that puts you 1 prize down in the prize trade. The ideal situation is you take a prize every turn, and you take the first prize, never benching an EX, and there is no way you can possibly lose. Although Luke does screw that up with Articuno. So we see that second Execute going in the discard here from the Battle Compressor on what looks like a couple of energy. Obviously Luke now wants energy in the discard pile because it's incredibly useful. Superior Energy Retrieval, and there is, as Professor's letter, Superior Energy Retrieval allows you to take 4 basic energy from your discard and put them into your hand, so long as you discard 2 cards from your hand. But when you've got 2 Execute in a discard pile, you can just propagate the pair of them and then discard them. So essentially, it's a trainer card that allows you to grab 4 basic energy from the discard pile. That's ludicrous. And you see Luke showing off here with the Ultra Ball. He didn't discard any cards from his hand. He literally used Ultra Ball as if it read, search your deck for any Pokemon. Might I remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that's what Master Ball does, and Master Ball is an ace spec. Of course, as he grabbed... Oh, and we see the flips. He only needs 1 head. He's got 2 tails. 3 tails. That is ludicrous. So Luke there was trying to use Articuno's attack. 20 damage plus 40 for each heads from 3. Coin flips. If he'd have hit 1 head, he does 60 damage and takes 2 prizes on the Eevee. And he whiffed. He didn't hit a single head. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is very, very bad luck. Not only does Luke not take a prize there... Well, not only does he not take an extra prize, he doesn't take any prizes, and he leaves the Eevee alive. Tamao can now go Flareon and 1 energy, and actually try and KO the Articuno, taking the first prize, knocking his energy off the board, although with superior energy retrieval that is less of an issue. But I think Luke only plays the 1 Articuno, and he doesn't play any Super Rod or anything like that in this deck. So he's actually not only denying Luke prizes, I say denying Luke prizes, Luke denied himself by whiffing the flips. Not only is Luke not getting the prizes for the flips, for missing the flips, but he's also missing out on Articuno, which is his secret weapon. Against any non-EX deck, you know, if you can get a 60 HP Pokemon and just need 1 coin flip out of 3, which, anyone know the maths for that? It's 1 in 8. You got a 1 in 8 chance of failing it, or a 7 in 8 chance of hitting it. And that means that, you know, Luke would have gone 2 prizes up before Tamao's even taken a prize. Now, I don't know how many Pokemon Tamao's got in the discard pile, but Flareon's attack is 10 damage plus... 20 plus 10 for each Pokemon in the discard pile, which means he needs 10 Pokemon to get the KO here, assuming he has a second energy. He's, no, I don't think he's played this, so he could potentially play a Blacksmith here. Although Tamao, I don't believe... Oh, did he just play that Sycamore? He might have just played that Sycamore. I looked away for 1 second. I think he should play a Sycamore. This is what he's got a fairly large hand. No, excuse me, he played the Shaman. Okay, so I don't think he's played a supporter yet. So he could play the Blacksmith. If I'm wrong, feel free to berate me in the comments. That's what YouTube's for, ladies and gentlemen. Berating people. Apparently, any road. So, did that sound a little bit defensive? I fear it might. So Tamao needs 10 Pokemon in the discard. I'm unsure exactly how many he's got in there at the moment. Now, a lot of people, myself included, do use dice there to, you know, you put a dice to keep track of how many Pokemon are in the discard pile. I was chatting to Tamao about this, and the reason he doesn't is essentially, even when I've got dice there, I don't trust it, and I just count every time anyway. Oh my goodness! That is a horrible, 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 horrible discard. That looked like 3 VS Seeker and 2 Sycamore. That was horrific! Now, if he hasn't used a VS Seeker yet, if he's used a VS Seeker, then that means he's out of VS Seekers. And that's early in the game. I lied, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. That Articuno's got 10 damage. He only needs 9 Pokemon in the discard. And there goes Unknown. Farewell Letter allows you to draw a card and discard him. Ah, it would have been nice if he'd gotten a basic fire energy there. It looks like he's got 3 DCs in hand, but when you've already got a basic energy attached to the Flareon, you really want a second basic energy. As explained in the previous game, those DCs are at a premium, and that Flareon, he's got 80 HP left. He ain't lasting very long. So, Tamao goes 1 prize up, the Articuno's gone. Now remember, Luke could use Archie's Ace in the Hole to recover the Articuno in the same way that he did to get the Blastoise out initially. Although that would be incredibly cumbersome, it still remains as a theoretical option for Luke here. So it looks like there is a superior energy retrieval. There we go. 1 goes on the active Kyurem, 2 go on the bench. Remember that Kyurem for 2 energy can do 30 to the active, 30 to the bench, or for 3 energy can do 130 to the active, I believe, but you can't use the attack next turn. That's the one he's gone for, because that KO's a shame, and Luke is now one prize up in the prize race, and this is what Luke's deck needs to do. Now, Tamao, you know, he's got his thing, he's got his big non-EX attackers, that's what his deck is built to do. Luke's is not. So Luke needs to use Articuno, bench less EXs than Tamao. Tamao's deck naturally runs ahead in the prize race against a deck like Luke's. So the key for Luke is to, I suppose, artificially go ahead in the prize race, using the Articuno, using Lysandre to bring up those EXs, etc. Now, here's the thing that Tamao needs to watch at this stage. By the way, killing the Shaman did mean that Tamao gets to keep his attacker and try and set up a second one, so he's got 2 in one go, which is handy, although it looks like he's going to... Oh, he just picks up that Jirachi using an AZ. Now that's handy because, as previously stated, it's about the prize trade in a game like this. So by picking up the Jirachi, that means now, and he's discarding 2 low HP EXs with the Ultra Ball to keep that prize trade, you know, in his favour. That means now that although Luke, that essentially at the end of this turn, they'll be even on prizes, because Vespiquen's got free retreat and that Flareon's got the KO at this stage, I'm fairly certain. Oh yes, of course it has. He was doing 110 last turn and he lost the Shaman and he's just discarded 2 cards from his hand. So he's hitting for at least 140 at this stage as a minimum. Yeah, he's hitting at least 140. So the Vespiquen can free retreat and the Flareon's got the KO. He's got enough energy and all of that. So at the end of this turn, they've both taken 2 prizes. Luke gets the next go to go 1 prize up, but he's got an EX on the bench, Tamao doesn't. However, another thing to remember here, Tamao's used at least 3, if not 4 of his VS Seeker. I can't remember if he used one early game. So that means that those Lysandres aren't going to be coming out that easily, ladies and gentlemen, because, and I think he might have got rid of one of them early game as well. That means Tamao's really going to be... And it may well be that Tamao never gets the opportunity to get that Shaman off Luke's bench. I mean, that was a really horrific Sycamore he had to play last turn. Something like an N would have been far, far better. But then again, what's he going to do? Sit there and not be able to do anything? Remember, that Articuno had to go down. If you give Luke a couple of turns with Articuno, he's just going to win the game. Now the Caldeo goes down with a Floatstone. 2 reasons for this. Firstly, you've got to get that Kyurem out the active. It can't attack. Because of he used well, he used that attack last turn. But also, Luke's got to be thinking here. He knows. I mean, Luke's a very good player. He knows that Tamao's dumped those VS Seekers. And we see an Unknown going down there. Luke plays the Unknowns as well. This Blastoise deck, it's all about getting set up early. So making room for the Unknowns, it just makes Luke's deck more consistent, and that is absolutely crucial. So here, Luke's thinking, you know what, maybe he's got 1 Lysandre. I can't remember the exact counts, I'm afraid, but I think at this stage, I know I was watching the game live, Tamao's got something like 1 theoretical Lysandre left. So Tamao's sitting there going, you know what, I don't really care, to be honest, because I can just sit here and okay, but I already had a Shaman on the bench. So fine. If I put down another 2 EXs, well, you can kill them, but then, you know, you can only kill 1 of them. I've already got 1 down, so nuts to it. Let's just chuck all my EXs down on the bench. You ain't killing them all. Ha, 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 ha. He's ending both players down to 4 here. Now, Luke could draw dead. He doesn't have a backup attacker going, but he's almost certainly going to draw into something. And you see he draws into a superior energy retrieval there. So Luke's absolutely fine. Tamao here, he's got the Flareon and he's got a Vespiquen. So even if he drew badly off that end, he's still got an attacker ready to go next turn. So here we see the prize trade going as expected. The question is... Well, I suppose there's there's a few questions. 1, does Tamao have any Lysandre, or was that earlier Sycamore just brutal? I think it was only 3 VS Seeker, might have been more, I think it was just 3. Does he have any Lysandre to take advantage of all of those bench DXs? Can Luke get the Articuno back, which I believe would need an Archie's Ace in the hole, because when you're recovering energy from the discard using Superior Energy Retrieval, and you're playing a high enough Pokemon count, why would you ever need Super Rod? So, I mean, Luke's made the right choice by not playing it. And can both players keep up the pressure? When you've got these non-EX decks and you're just trading KOs back and forth, one of the things you need to watch is that you've actually got enough. Because it may well be that Tamao just can't find a DCE one of these turns, or Luke can't find a Superior Energy Retrieval, and then actually they lose steam, get behind in the prize trade, and never recover. Now, as it is, Luke's halfway there. He's taken 3 prizes. Tamao will be halfway there by the end of this game, by the end of this turn. So, he's doing just fine. Now, a Lysandre here would and there goes that 4th Eevee. And a Tool Scrapper comes down. He hadn't, but I believe that's his last VS. Oh! I don't know whether I agree with this or not. Tamao just used his last VS Seeker to get an N and played the N. It was an N he discarded with his Battle Compressor. He's trying to put Luke down to few prizes, hoping that he draws dead. Now, we know he had a really good hand. Oh my goodness, he drew his Computer Search and he's got 2 Executes and a discard. He's going to be fine. You think about it from Tamao's point of view, you're knocking out all but one of his energy. If he didn't draw anything off of that N to 3, essentially 4 by the time he draws for his turn, then that really gives you a big advantage. Now, here's the other way to think about it. If you use a VS Seeker for a Lysandre, you get to kill something, maybe, for instance, the Keldeo, and then you've only got 2 prizes remaining to get the win, and maybe you do have a Lysandre in hand, I don't know. Now, here's another thing to consider, and as I say on a lot of these videos, these are very rarely black and white decisions where one is right and one is wrong. You're playing an odds game. Because, let's say, for instance, Tamao does what I suggested. He uses the VS Seeker, he grabs a Lysandre, he takes a KO, presumably on the Keldeo. Okay, well, what if Luke just then drops an N to 2? There's very, and then KOs the Vespiquen, and you've got no energy. I mean, that's a very real risk. Now, maybe Tamao KOs the Blastoise, maybe he then the following turn KOs a Kyurem and Luke has nothing, but maybe if you Lysandre KO the Blastoise, Luke can just go Archie's Ace and a whole boom second Blastoise. So, a lot of things to consider. I'm generally a more aggressive player than Tamao. I probably would have gone for the Lysandre for the EXKO, but Tamao didn't know what Luke was going to... Now, obviously, we know that Luke has drawn whatever he wants, but Tamao didn't know, and Tamao made a very clever play. It just, in this particular instance, it didn't work out. Then again, had Tamao Lysandre something off the bench and killed it, and then Luke ends him to 2, then I'd be saying, oof, wrong decision. These decisions are all very well and good. It's very much a case of, if it works out, you made the right decision. If it doesn't, you made the wrong decision. Just so we're clear, I'm not saying Tamao made the wrong decision. I'm just pointing out an optional play that he could have made. I like to do things like that. People have told me they enjoy that stuff in my videos. I hope that is the case. Now, annoyingly, for Tamao at least, Luke has chosen to use his hand to actually get a hand of 0, Computer Search for an Archie's Ace in the hole, or a VS Seeker, one of the 2, and get his Articuno back, which was a play I suggested he could be looking for towards the beginning of the game. Looking pretty good for Luke at this stage. He's not ahead in the prize race, but he essentially is because it's his turn. And he's got the Articuno on the bench. So if he takes a prize this turn, he is 1 Articuno KO away from winning the game. And that is a very nice place to be. And, we see a 40 HP Combi, a 60 HP Eevee, a 60 HP Unknown, all of whom can be Lysandre'd up, and with 1 out of 3 coin flips, Luke wins the game. And this is what I was talking about earlier in the game, and Luke there, he's just using Battle Compressor to get rid of stuff what he doesn't want anymore. Just to increase his odds of drawing, the less cards you don't want to draw in your that are in your deck, then the more chance statistically there is of drawing what you want when you top deck every turn. Draw the top card of your deck, for people who are unfamiliar with the expression, which I assume is very few of you, but still, let's try and be inclusive, ladies and gentlemen. So we don't know if Luke's actually got a Lysandre. If he does, well, he would need some energy. Well, I mean, presumably it would just be a superior energy retrieval, which he's just played. And presumably he's going to use to put a whole bunch of energy on the Articuno. I would be very surprised if he attacked with the Articuno this turn. No, and they're going on the Caldeo. Because Luke, again, he's looking here and he's thinking, I attack with a Caldeo. If Tamao KOs the Caldeo, he doesn't win the game. And I've got my Articuno, and I would much prefer him to KO the Caldeo at this stage. Articuno wins the game next turn, Caldeo does not. So, yeah, he might be giving up 2 prizes, but who cares? He's giving up 2 prizes in a situation where your opponent won't win the game and it's set up so you probably will next turn. Big question is, does Luke have a Lysandre in hand? If he does, then he's only going to need 1 coin flip to go his way in order to get the KO. Tamao, even if he evolves everything, the Eevee evolves into Flareon, which has essentially 50 HP with the weakness. So Tamao will have something on his bench next turn with 60 HP or less. If he doesn't, then Tamao's presumably going to have a 90 HP Vespiquen in the active, which I don't believe... I'm just going to double check quickly. I don't believe it's weak to... I don't believe it's resistant to water, which means that Luke is going to need 2 out of 3 KOs, coin flips, which will do 100 damage and get the KO on that. So, I wish I could see his hand right now, if I'm honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. I would really like to be able to see his hand right now. That would give me some useful information. It would help. It would really help. So, what's Tamao going for here? The Vespiquen, it has 90 HP and it does not have a resistance to water. A lot of grass Pokemon do, but that one doesn't. So, the unknown goes away. He needs to draw an energy off here. Did he get it? Oh, he got it! He got the DCE off of that unknown for 1. And that's what he was doing with the... you can't attach a Sycamore to a Vespiquen. And that's what he was doing in the previous, a minute ago. He was using Battle Compressor to get rid of all the rubbish in his deck. Now, next turn, he's presumably going to need a Flareon or a Vespiquen and an energy of any kind. And he's sorted, and he's won the game. And this is why that Articuno is such a clutch play. Tamao here is going to go down to a single prize, and he's got a Sycamore in hand. He hasn't got much left in his deck. It looks like he's going to be able to win the game next turn. The question is, can Luke win the game this turn? And he's got to attack with the Articuno. So, if he has a Lysandre, he's going to need 1 heads on the Combee or the Eevee. If he doesn't have a Lysandre, he's going to need 2 heads. He's going to be flipping 3 coins. So, the quest, it doesn't. Oh, he's got a Jirachi in hand. So if he's got a now, he might be saying that my last Lysandre is in there. He's got a Jirachi in hand. So if he's got a Lysandre in his deck, he can just drop he can just drop a Jirachi and grab it straight away. Now it might be that he's got Lysandre in his discard pile and he's got VS Seeker in his deck. In which case Jirachi won't help him. Although does he have a Shaman in hand, which he could use to draw a couple of extra cards? Or is he just going to go... Oh, he's just going to go for it. We have a Tails. He needs to hit both of these heads to win. He's got a heads. This is literally this one flip. It's heads. He wins. Simple as that. He hits 2... Oh! Would you believe it, ladies and gentlemen? The last 2 cards in his deck were VS Seeker. So he had a 2 in 3 chance of drawing what he needed, and he failed. So after missing all 3 coin flips on his second turn to try and get the KO, and after whipping the VS Seeker despite 2 out of 3 cards in his deck being Vespiquen, he still manages to get 2 out of 3 coin flips on the last Articuno and win. Yeah, it cycled round to the beginning of the game again. I'm just going to finish off here while it rolls. Thank you to Luke and to Mal and to everyone who agreed to be recorded at this tournament. It was lovely of you all to agree. Thank you to Joanna Shirley and Glenn Pugh for running the tournament, letting me record and making it easier for me to record. I very much appreciate it. Hopefully you enjoyed these videos. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out all my other videos on this channel. I'm going to be back shortly with more games and videos and all kinds of good stuff. And actually, I need to do my top 10 from the latest set. I haven't done that yet. We'll get on that. Breakthrough. Top 10 cards. It's happening. Thank you very much for watching. Look after yourselves till next time. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.